Bolognese is a meat sauce that happens to contain some tomatoes. This is not a tomato sauce with meat in it. Mm-hmm. Those are different things. There's a few things that I discovered that I was like, well, I'm still going to do it this way. Mm-hmm. I definitely am never and would never serve it with spaghetti. But there's some other things that I was like, what? I'm going to go against that one.
So there.
Tim.
Bolognese.
Bolognese.
Bolognese. Ragu alla Bolognese.
Yeah, the real deal.
I was thinking about this during preparation, and I believe this is probably the most well-known and iconic pasta dish in the world. And I would say Italian dish, but I think pizza just pips it.
Okay. Yeah, I can agree with that. Pizza is certainly more ubiquitous than this particular sauce preparation. And then also we misuse it here in America.
Yes.
Almost across the board.
Totally. The version which is most well-known, spaghetti alla Bolognese.
Wrong.
Yep.
Yeah. And why is it wrong?
Because spaghetti is a southern Italian pasta, and this requires also, so tagliatelle is the correct one, codified, as we will learn.
Oh, yeah. I dug into it too. I tried not to, but I couldn't help myself.
Fresh pasta as well, whereas spaghetti is the variety always used for this is dried. So you're using something from the south and the wrong type of pasta.
Right, and it's a dried pasta that's extruded through the brass pasta extruder, and so it's super smooth, so it doesn't have any grip. Mm-hmm. Right, you want that fresh pasta, you want that wider noodle, and we'll talk about why as we go.
Yeah.
As we dive deep into Bolognese.
So I cut this from my notes, but now that we're talking about all of this, and we've teased that there is a codification, so we know where that's probably headed if you're a regular listener to Sauced and some of the things we covered there, but there was something where the mayor of Bologna in recent years was trying to show that the world does Bolognese wrong, right? Mm-hmm. Like that everyone's doing it wrong because they're not using tagliatelle and they're making other mistakes that we'll get into. So he was asking people to share photos online from around the world, and people were coming back with like tinned versions from the UK and one from Scandinavia that was like literally comes out of a tube, spaghetti bolognese. So while he was trying to show that like everyone does it wrong, what he inadvertently proved was that the dish that's gone out into the world and the dish that everyone thinks of has superseded the true bolognese preparation.
For sure. Yeah.
So he kind of backfired? I don't know.
I mean, it seems like everyone proved him right, that everyone does it wrong.
True.
The tube I'm going to have to look up. Not only am I going to have to look it up, I'm probably going to have to get one.
A tube of... I mean, like, who is that for? Children?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Spaghetti bolognese on the go. It's Go-Gurt. It's a slurpable tube of pasta and meat sauce.
This being a ubiquitous dish, personal associations with it.
Oh, man, I worked for years at an Italian trattoria in North Carolina called Pop's, and we certainly made our fair share of this ragu. And plenty fresh pasta, too.
This is a dish that I would say was part of one of my mum's regular rotations at home. Definitely grew up eating it. And I think it also speaks to the versatility, right? Like you can have it as bolognese one day. You can use it for a lasagna if you want. It'll go with other things. And
well, it's also like so mildly seasoned that you can. And in fact, my dad, when I was a kid, now that you bring that up, it's giving me a pretty quick visceral memory. My dad would make a huge pot of this and we'd have pasta. And then the next night he would bury it in taco seasonings and we'd have tacos.
Yeah. Totally. That you could also make sloppy joes out of it if you dry it out a little bit. Yeah, you can just take it in so many different ways. But again, if we're giving this the full sauce treatment, which of course we're going to do, we're going to explore all the areas that we need to dial into and that we need to respect tradition, because we won't. I don't think we need to respect all of them, but you know what I mean. We'll land on the sourced version.
Oh yeah, there's a few things in that I discovered that I was like, well, I'm still going to do it this way.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely am never and would never serve it with spaghetti, but there's some other things that I was like, what? I'm going to go against that one.
I think I know, or maybe not. We shall see.
Yeah.
The one professional association I have with this, when I worked at the bistro in London, one of the dishes on the room service menu that, you know, each section was responsible for, and these were only like things that were cooked and served by the night porter. Mm-hmm. So it was like when the kitchen shut down, like there's a handful of stuff. It would be lasagna in these, like, you know, the classic mash boats, mm-hmm. Or dauphinoise boats. So whoever was on the grill station had to prepare those and make sure that every night when they were leaving, they had like 6 or 8 en place just to make sure, you know. It wasn't a massive hotel. There was this one South African chef called Adam who was like, he was the kind of chef who was out of a Bourdain book. Mm-hmm. Verifiably like crazy, obsessed with movies, smoked, wasn't good with hygiene particularly.
Right.
And he wasn't a great chef by any means. He was kind of slow.
Just a pirate.
Yeah. But the one thing he always prided himself on was his ragu base for the Bolognese. And actually, doing a lot of research for this, he was pretty spot on with a lot of stuff he used to do. Like, he would have that thing taking up half of his stove during service, just slowly simmering away, like not even simmering. And he was like, yeah, you know, you can't touch it, bro. You know, the terrible South African accent there, but Timmy,
you can't touch it, bro.
So yeah, whenever I think of authentic ragus, it's a skinny South African that first comes to mind.
Funny.
God knows where he is in the world these days. Shall we get into some origin stories?
Sure. Well, let's don't.
No, sorry. Yeah. Please give me the elevator pitch before we get into the origins.
I always try and like boil it down to a quick, you know, elevator pitch, and like we have to come to the understanding before I even give the pitch that Bolognese is a meat sauce that happens to contain some tomatoes. This is not a tomato sauce with meat in it. Mm-hmm. Those are different things. So Bolognese, or ragu alla Bolognese, slow-cooked meat sauce from Bologna that transforms humble ingredients into a rich, silky, deeply savory accompaniment for fresh pasta.
Delicious.
That's just as boiled down as I can get it.
And it is interesting that you use the word humble there.
Yeah.
Because that's what I think we all associate with this.
Mm-hmm.
The early versions, looking at them now, sort of hundreds of years on, this is kind of more of a prince's preparation, as we'll see. But we will decide that after we get to it. Mm-hmm. To do so, we need to travel all the way back to the late 1700s. In Imola, just down the road from Bologna, a cook named Alberto Alvisi writes down what is the first ever mention of ragu in text. And it was a dish he made for the local bishop, a man who would later go on to become Pope Pius VII.
All right.
So what was in it? Rendered lard and butter, a finely chopped onion, minced meat, including veal, pork, and giblets, browned hard, then loosened with a little bit of broth and bound with a little flour and seasoned with salt and pepper and a touch of cinnamon. So no tomato anywhere in sight. That recipe got forgotten for centuries until two Bolognese journalists, Aureliano Bassani and Giancarlo Roversi, discovered it and resurrected it and printed it in a book that they published either in the late 80s or 90s. I got 2 versions of that one. Mm-hmm. So the first ever ragu, no tomato sauce, and just a slight hint of cinnamon with offal giblets in there. Very far from what we know today.
And that's offal, O-F-F-A-L.
Yeah, awful.
It sounded like you said awful.
Awful.
You reckon that they weren't putting any tomato at all in back then because tomato was still considered maybe poison, right? The whole nightshade debate.
I also just wondered whether you made this point recently for us too, where it's like you're talking much more seasonal times there, and we're talking northern Italy, or certainly central north there. That being an ingredient much more grown in the south.
Yeah.
So I wonder whether it was that, and purely maybe this happened in winter. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
The first time alla Bolognese appears in a cookbook was one very, very famous Italian cookbook from 1891 by author called Pellegrino Artusi.
Yep.
Science in the Kitchen and the Art of Eating Well. L'arte di mangiar bene. That was a macaroni alla Bolognese. And what was in that? Veal, pancetta, a sofrito. Don't go near that one, Souther. Butter and broth with optional luxuries of dried mushroom, truffle, and or chicken livers finished with a little cream. So once again, tomatoes out of the equation, and this is much closer to that Alvisi 18th century ragu than the Bolognese we know today. The tomato sauce, or as it should be correctly, and as you pointed out, meat with a bit of tomato. So then comes, and this is something we've seen so often in our exploration of Italian dishes that go global. As tomato in the early 20th century becomes a fixed part of cooking, and the sauce that enters the equation much more frequently. And then by the mid 20th century, when you have the emigration of Italy to America, that's where, you get the Sicilian dried pasta coming into it. I suspect also, we're talking immigrants, people probably with very little means. So tomatoes are going to be cheaper than meat. So you're flooding your sauce with more tomatoes just to kind of stretch it out.
Sure. Economy of scale.
Yeah. Final one for me here, and the one that I thought you would enjoy, and it sounds like you've been looking into this.
Yeah.
The Italian Academy of Cooking, or the Accademia Italiana della Cucina, or Cucina. I never know with the single and the double C's in Italian. Much easier with Spanish. In the 70s, they registered at the Bologna Chamber of Commerce what should be the correct tagliatelle measurements, and the one that's used for Bolognese ragus. 8 millimeters wide cooked fresh egg pasta. And they have a registered codified recipe that I'm just going to put a pin in till we've gone through our non-negotiables, so that when we can compare ours to theirs. But yeah, there's a few things on there that I think what might surprise some folks.
Yeah, well, I think the coolest part about it is, or just notable, I don't know if it's the coolest part, that they codified the recipe for the sauce in 82 and recently updated it in 2023, I think it was. 2023,
yeah.
To be a little bit, quote unquote, more modern, or, to meet the modern grocery list, basically. They didn't change much about technique, but they changed a little bit about the grocery list.
Yeah, which is nice to see, right? Because when we were talking, for example, with bouillabaisse and the charter of bouillabaisse in Marseille, and them using fish that just aren't available for us over here.
Right.
This is more flexible, and this reflects what's at the butcher shop and what people are commonly cooking with. Yeah, so I like it.
Modern tastes. I do too. Being firm but flexible is great. And I also really, really adore that these academies, these institutions exist at all, and that they are so passionate and nerdy about the dishes and the representation of their countries of origin that they codify these things. We don't have anything.
Yeah.
There's no American Academy of Cuisine that's codified, the hamburger or whatever. You know what I mean?
It's true.
And maybe we should. The platonic ideal, and then go your own way from there. But here's the roots. No beans in chili.
Do you think that comes down to the fact that there are so many regional variations on what we would consider sort of classic American dishes or American inventions? Not that that's unique to America.
I mean, sure, but there are plenty of ways to use meat sauce that aren't this, But this at least is codified so that we have like a sort of touchstone to look back on and go, well, it's sort of like a bolognese, but I used whatever, ground shrimp, or whatever, instead of ground meat.
Do you think that in the information age, the internet, do you think the internet has essentially killed what is such a tradition in countries like Italy, where it's like generally grandmother, but grandparents pass down the recipe to their sons and daughters, and then that passes through. You know what I mean? Like that literal cooking and handing off of recipes. Like, do you think the internet, just because we have everything to hand now, that is kind of, I don't know.
I don't know if it's dead, but I will say that it's probably slowing down the it's probably slowing down the changes that happen, because what you just described is a slow-moving generational game of telephone.
Yes.
My grandma's recipe that she gave to my mom changed it a little. And then my mom gave it to me, and I changed it a little. And then I'm going to give it to my kid, and they're going to change it a little. Right? So, like, slowly this thing is changing. And then, of course, the things that change around you, the things that are available, my grandma's recipe for biscuits, I can't make them here because we don't have the right flour here in the, Northeast United States to make good Southern-style biscuits. So those things change too, right? I don't know. Has the internet done good and evil things? Yes. Was that your question?
No, well, I just wonder whether that just kind of cuts this line through and kind of creates a clean breaker for better or worse, right? Because then, like, say, for example, if I had, nieces or nephews or a son or a daughter, whatever, right, and handed down some recipes for, I don't know, sourdough, then you'd be like, someone could just look up that recipe and be like, that's the New York Times cooking one or whatever. You know what I mean? It's not a family heirloom anymore. I'm pretty sure there's a comedy, there's a show, a sitcom, might have been Friends, where someone is trying to reverse engineer one of their parents or grandparents, like, I think it was cookies.
And then it turns out it's the Toll House cookies.
Yeah. Was that Monica and Friends?
I think so, yeah. It's just the recipe on the bag of Toll House chocolate chips.
And then that creates another thing, right? How much is it down to the authentic recipe, and how much is it down to the nostalgia of who you're eating with, what you're eating, and where it is?
Oh, man. I mean, we've talked about this before in real life and also on the show. Like, oftentimes, it's nothing about what's on the plate or in the glass. It's about who you're with and where you're at. And also, is it raining today?
Yeah.
Do you like rain? Like, maybe it's raining, but you love that. It's going to make things different,
Yeah.
So, all of this that we dig into and talk about, it's fun for us, and it's minutia and it's details. But as I kind of always say on the show, like, I want you in the kitchen with me cooking. Let's do this together. It's fun, So, yeah, I can see all that.
How about culinary luminaries and people that have had an impact on this dish or something important to say about this dish?
Well, the only one that I really had specific to this dish you touched on, Pellegrino Artusi, considered to be the father of modern Italian cuisine, and kind of deserves the credit for popularizing this recipe in that book with a lengthy title, Science in the Kitchen and Art of Eating Well. And I love that the title itself has both science and art in it.
Yeah.
Because that's always, been a discussion. When I was a young chef, people would be like, oh, you're an artist. And I'm like, no, I'm a craftsperson. And they'd be like, well, what's the difference? And I say, well, I think with art, I'm allowed to emotionally move you. And this was baiting them because I knew that they'd respond, well, your food does move me. And I'd say, yeah, but I think with art, I'm allowed to move you in any direction. I cannot make you Bolognese that makes you feel morose. You will not come back for Bolognese. I have to make you Bolognese that makes you feel happy. So it's craft. But I love that he put the word science and art right in the title of his book, and it dominated. I looked at Jacques and Julia. Neither of them have anything really specific to say about it, except for things like, take inexpensive ingredients and make them extraordinary, but slow cooking, it's there. That's usually their take on stuff like this if they don't have a direct thing to say. Marcella Hazan, who we've talked about many times, is kind of the godmother of Italian cooking here in America. Her version in her book, The Essentials of Classic Italian Cooking, became the sort of gold standard for American cooks because, again, it was such a popular book here in America. And she famously wrote, the longer it cooks, the better it tastes. And I think that maybe that single sentence captures Bolognese entirely, right? It's not to be rushed. This is certainly a project that's going to take you some time when you get into it.
Her version is also available on the New York Times.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure it's verbatim pulled from Essentials of Classic Italian Cooking. If not, the steps are exactly the same. I've kind of taken to hers as being, actually, I think this is it. It's got certain things that were unexpected for me, but I can see why she does them, and she does them in the right order for my mind. And beyond that, just the steps. Everything seemed to click from her preparation, and maybe we can walk through some of those things just now, just to kind of highlight them, and then we can debate them in the non-negotiables.
Sure. I don't know her specific, but you probably have it there in your notes. Let's go.
So the unexpected ingredient, but that is traditional, number one is milk.
Milk has to be there for me.
And then also she opts for dry white wine instead of red, and we can get into that too. But she goes, mirepoix, essentially, then meat, then milk, cooked off completely, tiny bit of nutmeg, that, callback.
That's a little bit of I kind of like nutmeg, but nutmeg doesn't have to be there for me. It's not a non-negotiable by any means.
Well, we'll get into the non-negotiables.
I know we will, but I'm just saying, like, this popped up in a little bit of my looking around. I've never put it in there.
Me neither, but I
could see it,
I just thought that nod back to the first ragu made total sense. And don't get me wrong, like nutmeg and meat, nutmeg and milk.
Yeah.
Fantastic together.
Well, if you're using that same ragu and you're building your lasagna with bechamel has nutmeg, right?
Yeah.
So, like, I see it. And I also see that bechamel has, dairy. So the milk, like, it all ties back together.
Yeah. So those were the things that popped up, and we can dive deeper on those. But I think she's kind of like, I don't know. For some reason, her preparation has cemented itself in my mind.
I will say that I'm curious to talk about more. The milk comes before the wine.
Yes. And we will get into that.
All right.
One or two other people. Massimo Bottura. We've spoken about him before.
Yeah.
From Emilia-Romagna, so close by, or maybe, I don't know my Italian, like which is the region in the province and where in, but I know they're close by. Modena, I believe he's in. That's where more famous for their balsamic vinegar. He goes with chopped meat rather than ground.
Okay.
And I think that's, again, a tie back to history and just what would have been done beforehand. I've never tried that out, and I guess that's kind of like the chili debate.
I think for me, that would make a texture that I wouldn't be looking for in this sauce. Because, I just explained it to myself. This is a sauce. I'm not expecting to be chewing on meat. I want the ground meat, and the long, slow cooking is going to break it down to a point where it's a sauce.
Totally.
But again, that's just one man's opinion. I've been getting raked lately for my opinions, so I got to reiterate that that's just me. You can do what you want.
You could. I always make sure that we cut that qualifier from the social media clips, because no one wants a steady hand or an even take on social media. So
yeah,
you can say that's just me all you want on this. It ain't making it into the clips.
Perfect.
Then one final one, this is a restaurant I would really like to go to, Felix Trattoria in Los Angeles, down in Venice Beach.
Let's go next time we're out.
Yeah, we got it.
For LA Spirits.
We never get that far west into the coast. It is a trek to get out there.
Well, you could do it for us. I can't. I don't have a driver's license, right? You could rent a car for us.
Or we could take a Waymo.
I can drive, and I will drive, but I can't rent the car. The license doesn't teach me to drive. It teaches just the legality of it.
Just allows you to. So a chef called Evan Funk. He left a fine dining career to go to Bologna and to train under master Sfollina, like pasta maker, Alessandra Spinzi. So his restaurant in Venice, Los Angeles, has a pasta lab in the middle of it, and it's got like glass around it.
So you can watch, yeah.
And so obviously we've all worked in kitchens where you make pasta by hand, but they're processing everything by hand. So no machines, everything is hand rolled, with pins and stuff like that. The kind of work as well that Massimo Bottura is pretty famous for. I think if you've seen the chef's table and stuff like that. He also, and the name of his is like tagliatelle al ragù vecchia scuola, so I guess old school. He also goes for hand chopped meat, which again, interesting nod. But this is one of those ones where I'm with the Academy. I'll go with the evolution. I like the mince.
Yeah.
All right. Well, those have been our origins and our culinary luminaries and what they have to say on Bolognese. So let's take a quick break now, and then we'll be back with the non-negotiables.
Sure. Today's non-negotiables are brought to you by Tequila El Viejito. Family-owned and produced since 1937, El Viejito recalls tequila's pre-industrial era and delivers a profile that places cooked agave front and center, right where it should be.
All right, here we go. We're back. Non-negotiable number 1, hit me.
Meat. Meat is the star of this dish. And you got a couple of varieties of meat in here, but the bulk of it is going to be beef.
Mainly beef. What else are you going ground?
Yeah, we just talked about that. So I'm definitely we're going through the grinder on this.
Are you going, what are your other, you said it's the majority. What else are you thinking about putting in there?
Well, we're going to have some kind of pancetta. Well, not some kind. We're going to have some pancetta.
Unsmoked.
Unsmoked.
For this one,
for sure.
Sure.
I don't want smoked pancetta in this. I don't want bacon in this. Can you get away with that? For sure. But I think that the delicate nature of this sauce is really just about we want to get some saltiness from the pancetta. We want to get some fat from the pancetta to cook the vegetables with. But like this is not smoked. Let's that's a hard one on this one. I know we've debated this before, and that's why I'm really stating my case.
I might opt to go for a little bit of veal and pork in there as well to keep it kind of traditional and look at those other ones. Or in a pinch, maybe it goes beef, pork mince, and pancetta. I think that's where I'm kind of landing on.
Yeah, I think I'm right there with you. And if I'm wrong, I'm scanning through my notes real fast to see if I'm wrong. The Academy said there was a hard no on one or the other. Was it veal or pork?
We'll get to the Academy's recipe.
It must have been veal because the pancetta's pork. So Okay, cool. Yeah. So let's go pork.
Well, yeah, we'll see what they say. I don't remember off the top of my mind. They definitely have pancetta in there. I think the thing they changed their mind on was it used to be made with skirt steak, and they were like, that's harder to get hold of and expensive. So,
yeah.
Let's go ground. Next non-negotiable for me, it is often overused, but I think it has to be tomato.
Yeah.
I think paste or a little bit of passata, the sort of strained.
I want both. I want the passata and just depending on the batch here, but like, a spoonful, hefty spoonful of tomato paste to give it that tartness.
Nice. Next one for you.
You got to have mirepoix. We're going to make a sofrito, pretty standard, celery, carrot, onion. Going to dice them pretty small.
Yeah.
Going to render them in the fat that we get out of the pancetta, but soft. We're not trying to brown anything here, but going to need onion, carrot, celery, carrot, onion. And
it's surprising considering how often we just go for those ingredients normally and cook with them as our process and as French trained chefs. Doesn't come up that often in these dishes we've covered on sauce. So it's nice to see a little onion, carrot, celery.
Yeah, you're right.
Little mirepoix action happening. All right. Then I'm going to go wine.
Got to have some wine. And I know that you can go either way, red or white. I think I want red.
I want white.
Of course. I think, and you know what? It's so goofy. The reason that I think I gravitate towards red is because that's how we made it when I worked at Pops. But also the deep coloration of the sauce in the end product, I think, is helped along by the red wine. So I'm negotiable, I guess I could say. I'm my non-negotiable. I want wine for sure. I don't think, we had talked about on sauce how maybe in a lot of places we would substitute vermouth. I don't think vermouth is right for this dish.
No.
Because again, we want a really delicately beefy flavored sauce. And I think that the herbs and additives, but added botanicals in vermouth are going to be kind of crowding it out.
I guess where I lean white is for two reasons. Number one, we don't have any issue of tannins from the red. Now, of course, you can choose your red accordingly.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, yes, you get some primary fruit flavors from white wine. So, like green apple, lemon. It depends on the white wine, but white cooking wine, right, is going to be like acidic. It's going to be fruity, but light and clean. Whereas I think a red introduces bolder fruit character red fruits that are going to, I wouldn't say clash with the tomatoes, but maybe distract from.
Okay.
Maybe we'll go 50-50.
That could be an easy fix for
for
our conundrum.
If there were
Are you suggesting mixology? Okay, fine.
Next non-negotiable for you.
Milk.
Yeah.
Got to have some dairy in here. It's going to add to it's going to give it some unctuousness and some like silky quality. And we're going to cook it. You cook, when we get to the cooking part of this, you cook the liquids out. There's almost none left behind. So what you're really getting from the milk is kind of the lactose. And that's what's going to give it that mouthfeel.
Yep. The lactic acid also helps activate the meat's own enzymes. So it starts to help gently tenderize it, which is why I think, the Hazan approach is so good, because if that's the first liquid that the meat, which you've not necessarily heavily browned, or she doesn't, if that's the first liquid it meets and then you reduce that right down so it's completely gone, I'm like, okay, that makes sense to me, rather than finishing the sauce with it, which
honestly
would be
it does,
odd.
which is what I did my entire time. And every time I've made this, the milk is kind of the last thing. But now that makes perfect sense.
And you know what I was also surprised that I've never cooked this dish with milk. So this is a completely new ingredient for me for this one. What about the risk of curdling, right? If you have the extreme acid from the tomatoes and from your wine and you're mixing milk into that, isn't there a risk of that curdling? I mean, we make our milk punches.
I've never had it happen to me. I think the heat is helping.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah. But your point, I think the traditional version is like you have done at the end. So.
It is, but this makes more sense. Listen, I am nothing if not willing to learn something. I'm not a gatekeeper of information, and I'm willing to learn and change my opinion. And I don't even think I really had a strong opinion. I just like, well, this is how it's done. And then when you say that, and I'm like, wait, yeah, that's true. It almost makes me want to go like, I don't know, do I fold some of the milk into my ground beef before I even get it into the pan? No, because I want to get some browning. But right?
Yeah.
Because we do that with other things. We soak other things in dairy before we, think about your yogurt lamb or your
veal sweetbreads,
chicken dipped in buttermilk. You know what I mean? So yeah.
So I've got one kind of related to, we got into a little bit of milk science there for me. I don't think this is a non-negotiable when it comes to something I would be able to tell as a diner, but it's a standard that I hold myself to at home or when I was working in kitchens. For any dish that contains acidic ingredients, and is going to be cooked for a long time, cooking for a long time is a non-negotiable. I think we can agree on that.
That was my last one. Long cooking.
Therefore, you should never be using an aluminum pan, or there's some other materials as well for pans. Now, I get that that's not going to be an issue for most people at home, right? Most people have stainless steel, or aluminum pans aren't that common in home kitchens.
It's true, yeah.
But the big stock pots that you get, when you have massive pots in kitchens, aluminum's cheaper. And sometimes you don't have the pan you need available. And people would start sauces, and our chef would go crazy if there was any tomato in there.
Yeah. I can agree. And you're right. This isn't as common at home anymore. I remember having, my grandmother had, aluminum ware think it was actually Griswold aluminum stuff.
Ooh.
Yeah, probably worth money if it still existed. But I got that Sunbeam mixer. Anyway, yeah, you're right. And we had certain pots that we would make the Bolognese in at the restaurant. That again, yeah, no tomato going in there. That's good. That's a good call. I didn't even think about that. But also I did notice that when I went to the Academy's website and looked up the codification of the recipe, it does call for using enameled cast iron, or it lists like 3 that are like that you can use. And I'm like, man, these guys got to the nitty gritty. That was like line 1. Line 2, a wooden spoon, like specifically.
Stainless steel, enameled cast iron, or terracotta is the third one. Yeah. And the reason we're saying this as well, it's not to be like overly pedantic, but that's
the point of the show.
No, but overly, so acid plus aluminum or aluminum, the reaction, especially over a long period of cooking, will extract a faint metallic taste and a kind of bitter tinge to the dish. And it's not good.
It'll also etch your pans. Mm-hmm. I have a great example right now at my house. I made a bunch of pickles recently out of watermelon, and I sat them in quart containers, deli-style quart containers, on an aluminum sheet pan, and put them in the back of my cabinet or whatever. And when I went to grab one recently, there's a ring where the container was sitting that is etched. Like it looked dirty, and I felt it, and I could feel it. And then I went to scrub it, and I'm like, oh no, the vinegar, some of it bubbled out.
Yeah, the
vinegar etched my. So this can happen, and yes, it will produce some off flavors. Now, it's not going to kill you. It's probably not going to change anything really, but like if we can avoid it, let's avoid it.
Let's avoid it. Yeah, and yeah, more of a technical consideration than a non-negotiable. Mm-hmm. Then final one for me here. Oh. Finish it with cheese, and it has to be Parmigiano Reggiano.
Okay.
It's true to the region, and I would expect that, or I would at least expect to be offered it at someone's house or in a restaurant. So the option of having cheese.
Right on.
Okay, so let's fly through now the what Bologna registered most up to date in 2023. These are the classic non-negotiables. Meat is ground beef and unsmoked pancetta. The sofrito, onion, carrot, celery. The liquids, 1 glass of wine, and that can be red or white. They go for the double passata and double concentrate tomato paste. Mm-hmm. They do include milk, but now marked as optional, which I'm not sure they needed to dial back on that one.
Yeah, wow.
A little bit of broth.
Which we didn't mention. We need some broth.
Actually, we do. Yeah, that's another one. And extra virgin olive oil for cooking. I believe earlier versions had included butter. Mm-hmm. Which seems distinctly non-Italian, although, again, we're in the northern half here at least. And then they have a method. And as I mentioned earlier, the most notable thing about their method is adding the milk at the end.
Yeah.
The Academy. Makes me feel like that guy Pete's Pans that we love on Instagram.
I love that guy.
Is that his Academy? Actually, just give maybe a tiny bit of context. Give me a 30-second pitch on Pete's Pans.
Oh, this guy, I assume his name is Pete, and he is wandering across the countryside in Italy and France and Spain and cooking these beautiful dishes like outside with a voice overlay that's very soothing about the dish that he's making, and he does it all as traditional as possible with the local wine that he's drinking or Armagnac or what. It's just a fabulous, each of his videos is around 2 minutes long, so it's just a great 2-minute break from whatever you're doom scrolling. Pete's Pans, and he has what he calls the Academy.
Mm-hmm. His own codification of dishes and whatnot. Very similar to what we do, but he's out there in the wild traveling in a mini RV. Mm-hmm. You know what we've both forgot for a non-negotiable, which is pretty high up on the list, I'm just realizing?
What's that?
Pasta.
Well, the show is Bolognese, not pasta Bolognese.
I would say the show is ragu alla Bolognese.
Okay.
And
which is, yes, the sauce. That's the sauce.
But we're just going to put Bolognese in the title because that's what people are searching for. But I think the distinction is, okay, if you're serving this, it has to be served with tagliatelle instead of spaghetti.
Yeah.
And no penne. Don't get me wrong. I love it when it goes in the penne and the, what's the other one? The rigatoni. I love that. We'll save that for our vodka sauce.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. So we definitely need pasta, and it's going to be tag, and hopefully you can make it yourself. You know, it's crazy. Like, I made so much pasta when I worked at Pop's those many, many years ago that I just never like to make it at home.
Really?
It's one of those things, man. It makes such a...
It is kind of messy.
Well...
It's satisfying, though.
It is satisfying, and I'm going to make myself make some for this. But yeah, it just drilled it out of me, man. You know? Like, just really drilled it out of me.
Hopefully you'll come back.
Yeah, one day. Well, for this, I'm going to. You're right. And then second to that, though, this is, of course, the springboard for making lasagna.
Yeah.
So, but for our intents and purposes, we will make some pasta on the side.
Mm-hmm. So I want to introduce what is fast becoming a regular feature, Jamie Oliver.
Oh, maca. I don't even know what that means, but you said it and I loved it.
Mucka?
Yeah.
Or mucker. It's a colloquial term for, a friend, a mate.
Got it.
Pal. Jamie Oliver. Specifically, Jamie Oliver's very British Bolognese.
He's being careful with his wording.
So, I mean, fair play. At least he's given that caveat. Published in his 2020 book, 7 Ways. I believe the recipe's also on his website too. So probably he learned from jerk chicken and paella-gate, sorry, for those people that got annoyed about that. When I'm speaking Spanish, I will say paella. When I'm speaking English, British English, I will say it how we say it in Britain. Paella. Just for those people out there who got annoyed and left us comments. No, we love all the feedback.
I do.
So in 2020, which was 4 years after all of that, he published his recipe for a very British Bolognese.
Mm-hmm.
Some pretty bad swaps out here.
Oh, no.
Out goes the wine.
So why call it Bolognese? Just call it a very British ragu.
Exactly.
Skip that. You're in the zone here. Ragu is the umbrella term.
Also,
you can go anywhere from ragu. You say the word Bolognese, we got somewhere to go.
It's in a cookbook, right? You don't need you don't need SEO. You don't need search engine optimization for this.
Right.
Someone's already bought the book or is reading it. You have a captive audience.
Right.
Subs out wine for pale ale. Out goes Parmigiano Reggiano. In comes cheddar. Out goes pancetta. In comes bacon. In comes Worcestershire sauce from nowhere.
Just because. Well, it's very British.
He starts his cooking with a fistful of rosemary.
Oh, wow.
And there's a video of him making this on Facebook, by the way, and doesn't do a really good job to try and, because he uses it to flavor the oil. Doesn't do a very good job of taking it out afterwards. Then, so he uses frozen mirepoix from the bag.
Wow. But also, I'll give him credit for that. Like, fair play on that. He's trying to get people to cook.
Yeah.
So, okay, we're going to eliminate a step for you.
So he uses frozen mirepoix from the bag. Fine, totally cool. But then he adds mushrooms, which he's finally chopping. And he's not. He's talking about they should be the same size as their mirepoix. These things are like chestnut mushrooms sliced at best. And rather than tagliatelle... He cuts fresh lasagna sheets into 2 centimeter wide strips. Not really sure why he's doing that. And I think I covered everything there. And all that's left to say is that is our Porco, oh no, Jamie, you did it again moment of the week.
Wow. I just wanted to jump back for a second. When you said he used rosemary, it reminded me that they have a list of unacceptable variants on the Academy's site. Number 1, unacceptable variant is adding veal. That's what we talked about a minute ago. So I was like, I couldn't remember if it was veal or pork, but it's veal. Number 2, unacceptable variant, smoked pancetta or bacon, right? Again, no smoke in this dish. This one I find kind of funny. But I get it. Unacceptable variation is only pork. You can have beef. You can have beef and pork, but you cannot have only pork.
That seems fair to me.
Me too. Can't use brandy instead of wine. Cannot use flour as a thickening agent. And then here's the one that made me come back to this. Can't use garlic, rosemary, parsley, or other herbs and spices. This dish is delicate. This is all about the beef with a little bit of tomato and those vegetables and that little bit of fat and salt from the pancetta.
I like those things because they remind us to not go on autopilot, kind of how I was talking about earlier, right? Garlic maybe doesn't need to be in everything.
Correct.
You know what I mean? And being intentional, but we're just taught like, okay, we're going to start like this. This is going to be the base of everything. And maybe that homogenizes things. So
it does.
I'm glad that...
That's why this dish stands out and has some personality and a point of view.
A very British one.
Well, the Jamie Oliver version. The cheddar is what got me the most.
Cheddar. Come on, Jamie.
Let's do a very American one, and we'll use, American cheese. No.
Oh, my God. Can you imagine the uproar? Italy would erupt.
The fights.
All right, so those have been our non-negotiables, and I think we've covered every ingredient as well. So time for us to take another quick break, and then we will be back with the preparation.
Cool. You know how you can get away without these breaks?
Oh, tell me.
Be a subscriber.
Okay.
Subscribers get ad-free listening. But if you're not a subscriber, strap in. Here comes your break.
Yeah, but we love our partners as well.
Of course.
So, you're going to hear a wonderful message now, and if you're already a subscriber, you're just going to hear a little audio beat, and then we'll be back before you know it's like interstellar.
Let's go. Thanks to Tequila El Viejito for presenting today's non-negotiables. For an authentic taste of tequila, head to the show notes to learn more about Tequila El Viejito today.
Today's preparation is brought to you by Underberg. The chef's handshake after service, that's Underberg. All right, Souther, we are back. Time to prepare some Bolognese.
Let's get into it. We're going to get that, hopefully enameled cast iron pan or whatever vessel you're going to use over medium-low heat, get your pan surface in the 320, 350 degree range. That finely diced pancetta goes in. We start to render that out. You've got that, and take your time with this, right? Again, this whole process is lengthy. But as happens a lot, it's got a lot of pretty passive time involved. So we're looking at, A to Z. This is 6 hours-ish. Can go longer. Could speed it up too, but don't.
3 minimum.
Your patience will be rewarded, and I think that is a common refrain in the cooking world. If you can be patient, you will be highly rewarded. Anyway, so just a little bit of a scant amount of oil and that diced pancetta into that pot. That little bit of oil is just going to help the pancetta begin to render. You don't need a ton. Take your time, 5 to 7 minutes of getting the pancetta rendered, and then in go all those vegetables that are, again, pretty finely diced because we want them to kind of disappear, right? They're matter. We can't make them disappear, but we want them to kind of melt into the thing. Go about 20 minutes on just the veg, getting them really soft. Trying not to get any browning really, but just really soft. Then add in your meat, your blend of, we decided on ground beef and pork. Get that going for about 15 to 20 minutes. Break it up as best you can and increase the heat a little. We're trying to get the moisture in the beef and pork to evaporate. And it should get cooked, but I don't want it to be like crumbly and hard, right? I'm not trying to make like the crispy bits on the edge of a smash burger here. Changed I rotated a few things around in my notes real quick. This is when I'm going to add the milk in. We're going to simmer that until it's pretty much evaporated, like when you can take your wooden spoon and pull it across the bottom of the pan and not see any liquid down there. Then we can go in with the wine, and we decided we're going in with a split of red and white and something low tannin on the red.
Yep.
That's going to stay in there for about 15 or 20 minutes as well until, again, completely gone, right? We want it completely evaporated. Then we're going to add in our 2 tomatoes. I want to fold in a heaping spoonful of the tomato paste first and kind of get it sort of all over the place, stirred throughout, and then add in the, what's that word? I always forget it.
Passata.
Passata, which just means, as you said, strained, right? It's not chopped tomatoes, it's not diced tomatoes, it's not pureed tomatoes, it's strained tomatoes. I don't really know exactly what it means, but I know that it comes in that beautiful jar. Stir that thoroughly in and get it up to a simmer. Then add in stock. My preference for this is vegetable stock because, again, I'm relying on the taste of the meats that we put in there, not the broth. So I would either go water or a light vegetable stock here because, again, it should be a really delicate flavored sauce in the end. Bring that to a gentle simmer, 180, 190 degrees. Partially cover it. Walk away.
Mm-hmm.
And for a while, go watch a football game. We got 3 to 5 hours here. Step by every now and again and give it a quick stir. Make sure your liquid isn't completely gone. So every 20 to 30 minutes, you do want to come by and just check in. And if your liquid is going too fast, that means your heat's too high, so turn your heat down. And if it's going too fast, have some more stock handy to continue to kind of replenish it a little bit. At the end is where we're going to go in with a bit of salt and pepper, give it a good taste, and we're out. Now it's time to make pasta. Well, during that long, slow simmer, that's when you were making your pasta.
Mm-hmm. And maybe ideally the day before, as you spoke about in our bonus episode, which was on focaccia for paid subscribers very recently, but resting that pasta overnight, hydrating it overnight. Yeah,
that's advisable. I will be posting a video about the focaccia that I made that is a failure.
Oh.
I'm not pretty sure, I'm 100% sure. My yeast was not alive.
We spoke about that. And again, folks, that is a reminder. $7 a month, $70 for the year, 2 months free, bonus episodes on baking. And that's when you can hear Sother walking in full of hope for his first focaccia. And it sounds like that hasn't gone too well. But anyway.
I'm gonna bake it today when I get home. I've been fermenting it for 3 days, but it has not puffed up. So I know it was dead.
Yeah.
But that's okay. I'm going to bake it, and we're going to talk about the mistakes that were made, and we will rectify them and do better next time. But the episode was great, and it inspired me to go home and make bread.
Fantastic.
And I don't mind failing, especially if we're going to learn something from it. And also, it'll be edible. But,
A few notes I had here on the Bolognese, on the ragu.
Okay.
Number one, I'd be tempted to season my meat when we're browning. And also when we add the milk to tenderize, I would like just a little bit of nutmeg in there, just as a nod to the tradition.
Okay.
And then this isn't an addition or a correction or whatever, but something, again, I believe it was in the New York Times Hazan canonical recipe that I thought was great and really took me back to Adam in the kitchen there, South African Adam. When you're simmering it, you mentioned this, this isn't lightly bubbling. This is flat, and every so often you'll see a bubble, like a swamp, right?
Sure.
Every so often you'll see a little simmer and a bubble come to the surface.
The swamp from the movies, because I've been to swamps and that doesn't happen.
Well, yeah, true. I trust you on that one.
But I understand what you're saying. You need to be able to see a bit of steam rising off without really any action. So there is evaporation happening.
Yeah.
It's just not even remotely violent.
And then you're just, those occasional scrapes and stirs to make sure nothing is catching and caramelizing and burning on the bottom. And then when it's done, is that the fat separates from the stew and starts to pool at the edges of the pan. And again, if that's just on top, it's like you're making a veal stock or something. You probably got maybe a tiny bit too much fat, but also you're not cooking it quite enough. But yeah, pooling on the edge of the pan is a good sign that should you want to pull it off, and if the consistency looks good for you, then you're done. Or go another 3 hours,
Yeah.
Then, so you'll serve with your pasta, and we'll have the option of Parmigiano Reggiano grated fresh over the finished thing. Anything else you want to eat with this on the side?
Kind of no. I mean, maybe a nice wedge of focaccia.
Rubbed with a little garlic, because we're not allowed any in our dish.
I mean, the style of eating in Italy comes in waves, So we might have a contorni, some vegetable offerings on the side, maybe some simply roasted artichokes or even carrots, maybe some sweet carrots that have been roasted on the side would be nice. I didn't really think too hard about the side of this because I'm just really enamored by the dish itself.
I think the version I've had growing up, and the one that I think a lot of people expect, is just like a fresh salad of iceberg and tomatoes and maybe some onions and a acidic dressing, right? Like, I think that's the common one, but I really don't think it's necessary and potentially distracts from it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that has been our preparation. Definitely booze in this dish, but we're missing some in our glasses. Final break for us here today, and then Souther will be back with the booze.
Let's go.
Thanks to Underberg for presenting today's preparation. Because rich food deserves a sharp finish, head to the show notes to learn more about Underberg today. All right, Souther, we're back. I'm banning beer for this one.
Okay. I think I can get on board with that.
Yeah.
Unless we're making the very British Bolognese where we put beer in it.
I think Jamie's made me ban beer for this. I'm going to hit us with some wine pairings, and it's slightly ironic because something of a theme for us recently has been the primary pairing for this one. So we've been using it out of context.
Right.
And now we have to call for it again. It is, of course, Lambrusco.
Love it.
Traditionally paired with this dish in Bologna, chilled, lightly sparkling, dry red. I love it. And you know what? You do get a bit of tannins, but that interaction, it's such a novel, I think, texture and experience having tannins in something that's sparkling. It's the regional answer, so we got to go with it. But because we have been on a Lambrusco kick today, thought I would share two other ones that are sort of nearby and sticking with Italy. Sangiovese di Romagna. So Sangiovese being the primary grape used in Chianti. Bright cherry you can expect, some savory herbs, nice acidity, not too heavy on the body. You know, it's got good body, got good cuerpo, but it's not like, domineering. It's not going to overpower the dish. I think what you said about this is so true, right? Like, it's delicate considering all the ingredients it has. So we want to reflect that with the pairing. And then otherwise, and definitely easier to find than Sangiovese di Romagna, Barbera. Classic, juicy red, black fruit, again, bright acid, soft tannins, easy to drink, easy to pair, beautiful companion for Bolognese.
Yeah, I can agree with all those. And what do you reckon about Lambrusco? Is Lambrusco I find it to be polarizing. People either really dig it or they really are not for it.
My experience has been that it's kind of one of those wines that has suffered from associations that people have with sweetness. I think there was probably a generation of drinkers here that were only exposed to sweeter Lambruscos. Same goes with Moscato. Same goes with Sherry.
Sure.
And I think that is why people are like, oh, Lambrusco. But I think anyone who has tasted the modern versions, the one that we're talking about, or the classic, the dry one, I think anyone who's tasted it becomes an evangelist.
Yeah, but I still find it, when I pull out a bottle of Lambrusco, people are like, ugh. I think it's the carbonation, really. I think some people just don't enjoy carbonation.
And again, I can understand that too. If you're only, if you're used to white, sparkling is white or rosé, and red is still, it's a weird one.
Yeah.
The first experience you have with it.
I love it. Anyway, let's talk cocktails.
Yes.
I think that, some obvious pairings here are in the Negroni realm. Let's have a Negroni. Let's have a Negroni Spagliato, which is going to be an effervescent one. Let's have a Boulevardier, right? Because when I'm eating beef, maybe I want whiskey. Let's drop it down a little bit and have an Americano, which we talked about recently as well. But I've got an idea here. We are making this sauce that is meat with some tomato. So I think let's take a Martini and get some tomato into it.
Oh,
but not a ton. So let's make a tomato water, which I think is kind of a mystery to people, but it's super easy to make, and especially, get some nice, beautiful, ripe tomatoes, and we're moving into summer right now, so they're hitting. pretty easy. For every, I know this sounds like a crazy ratio, but for every about 3 pounds of tomatoes, you just need a teaspoon of either salt or sugar.
Ooh.
And this is just going to help draw the moisture out, and it just is going to depend on your intended use. So I've made tomato water into syrups many times for instance, I made an old-fashioned recently with a bacon fat-washed tomato water syrup.
Ooh.
That was supposed to go with a sandwich that had some of those flavors in it, like a BLT basically. For a charity event. You were there, recall?
I was there.
But in this case, I think we don't need to add any sugar to this. So just a little bit of salt, which is great to put into cocktails, don't forget. So anyway, teaspoon of salt to around 3 pounds of tomatoes. Pulse them in your food processor / blender. You don't want to make a complete puree out of this, but just give them, really, really chop them up well. And then suspend them in your finest mesh strainer or cheesecloth over a container and pitch it into your fridge and wait. And what you'll come back to several hours later will be almost water clarity liquid that has dripped out of those tomatoes. Now, of course, then that tomato product that you have left, we can use that for something else. But now that you've got this water, you could make it into a syrup if you want, but I think we can just use it as it is.
Nice.
And bring it into a martini. So I'm going to go, our standard ratio, you and I, is a 5-to-1. So that's 2.5 ounces of gin up against half an ounce of vermouth. Let's just substitute 1/4 of an ounce of our gin with this tomato water, right?
Delicious.
And then stir this over ice till it's nice and cold, and serve it in a frozen glass with maybe a little cherry tomato as a garnish.
Ooh, maybe even a little pickled cherry tomato.
Sure.
I love pickled. Yeah. Okay. This is really good. Glad we're going with a martini for a change. It's been a while.
It has.
It has been a while.
Now, I make them. You name them. You got a name for me?
I think we shall don this. We shall call this the Academy.
in honor of the Academy that have codified this recipe, and also our friend Pete from Pete's Pans.
Pete's Pans. There we go. Yeah, I love it and love a tomato water. Question for you. If I was to do that, and during the process of pulsing in my blender, if I wanted to make it even more kind of Bolognese, what would it be cool if I added some carrots and celery in there too? I'm not going to go onion, because I think that could be jarring, and I could get that from a jar. Woohoo! Pickled onion. Yeah, how would that... Then we're looking at more like, I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm trying to think who it was who somewhat recently had a cocktail on their menu that had sort of a mirepoix martini situation. Remember? And then they had the powders.
It's at Sip.
It's Sip from Sip
the
and Guzzle.
Downstairs bar at Sip and Guzzle, yeah.
Yeah, so you could certainly do that.
That's an intense drink.
Yeah. Have you had it? Oh, I've not.
Yeah.
I've only been upstairs at Guzzle.
I
had the burger, though.
I admire the creation. I don't know whether I would run to order a second one.
Copy.
But yeah, super interesting and interesting use as well of, that I think, as you mentioned, the seasoning on the side of the glass, almost like, how we would go for a margarita or whatever. It was very intense and a good use of dehydrated products that you were otherwise throwing in the bin. Mirepoix martini. What can't we martini? That is the question.
We have to do a deep dive on that very subject soon.
In the meantime, what are your final thoughts when it comes to this dish, or what are people missing out on if they never attempt to make it at least once in their life?
This seems to me a straightforward and basic recipe that has a few little gems in it that are going to just teach you some things about how, as we talked, I learned today myself, how milk is going to interact with meats, how patience can create flavors, how no single ingredient can achieve what this small amount of ingredients can achieve together. And it's going to teach you that, oftentimes very good food is less about complexity and more about understanding and transformation. Because this is a transformative dish. It takes many, many hours for it to go from its raw components to the completed product. Your patience is rewarded. And if I didn't say it earlier, and I meant to, when you make this, that 6-hour commitment is if you make 2 servings or 20. So go ahead and make 20. This is a product that freezes really well.
Don't be Tim with one rack of ribs on the grill, is what you're saying here.
Yes. Well, that's just a waste of resources, man.
No, otherwise, I'd be robbing myself of another occasion where I could be grilling.
I guess.
No, I love it. My final lingering thoughts on this are the things that I learned in Discovery, right? The milk, brand new to me. A little hint of nutmeg, amazing. And then that wonderful descriptor of, how it should be bubbling and at what point it's done. And what are people missing out on? I would flip that into more of a plea to people, which is like, look, Bolognese is something that most home cooks have in their arsenal. It's very hard if you've been making something the same way for 10, 15, 20 years to turn around and say, I'm going to completely do this different today, because that's what you know and that's what you like. I would urge those listeners for which that is the case to say, I'm going to give the sauce recipe a go. I'm going to try and hit all those beats, or at least please introduce milk, a little bit of nutmeg, slow simmer, fat separating. If you incorporate those, I'm happy. I think we've done our job today.
Yeah, and I think you'll come to a quick realization of why there's an entire academy that devoted itself to codifying this dish. It is well worth the effort and the exercise.
So that one of these days we're going to need to form our own academy.
Okay.
But you know what we got to do in the meantime?
Break out the apron.
And pull out the shaker.
And let's get cooking.
And drinking.
Let's go.
Sourced is recorded and produced by The Coaster, an independent podcast network based in Brooklyn, New York. Huge thanks to Charlotte Ager for designing our show logo, as well as the beautiful illustrations on our digital recipe cards. And thank you to George Miata for composing our awesome theme music. Escucha eso. Big thanks as well to all of our partners on today's episode. Please head to the show notes to check them out. We truly couldn't make this show without their support. And speaking of support, thank you to our premium subscribers, especially our founding tier backers from Kickstarter. And finally, thanks to you, listener, for joining us on this journey. Until next time, let's get sauced.